Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, South African prosecutors make an abrupt U-turn and drop fraud charges brought against Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. Critics of President Jacob Zuma's inner circle believed the case was a ploy to oust a minister who's vowed to tackle corruption. We take a closer look with our correspondent. Also, France announces the end of its Sangaris peacekeeping mission in Central African Republic, declaring that a page has been turned on the nation's troubles. However, sectarian clashes continue. And the show of the century and Africa is tuned in. As the countdown to the US election draws ever closer, we take a look at what the outcome of the race for the White House could mean for the continent. But first, South Africa's top prosecutors dropped fraud charges against the country's finance minister, saying that it would be difficult to prove that Pravin Gordhan had planned on breaking the law. Gordhan had been due in court later this week. He's accused of fraudulently green-lighting the early retirement of a tax commissioner before rehiring him as a consultant. From the start, Gordhan's rubbished the charges, saying that they were politically motivated. Top politicians, including the deputy president, backed him, and support marches had been planned outside the court in Pretoria on Wednesday. No need for that now. Aisha Ishmael tells us more about why Gordhan, though, found himself in the firing line in the first place.
Pravin Gordhan is respected in South Africa across the political spectrum. He's known as a man who does everything according to the book. He's also known as somebody who is not in the Zuma camp. And people and political analysts and also some opposition parties were saying that the reason why these charges were leveled against Pravin Gordhan was that they were hoping that he would go quietly and resign, and that President Jacob Zuma would then replace him with somebody who is more loyal to Jacob Zuma. But this did not happen, and as a result, the Director of Public Prosecutions today was forced to withdraw these charges against Pravin Gordhan.
So does the fact that this case against Gordhan was ever brought give us a sense of just how deep divisions run within the ANC?
Well, we saw when the charges were first announced against the Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, very senior people in the ANC, including the Deputy President, came out in support of Pravin Gordhan, and they were also saying that they would support him, and some of the senior people in the ANC said that when he was due to appear in court later this week, that they would actually go and accompany him to court. So that just shows how, as you talked about, the deep divisions within the ANC. But the civil society organizations and opposition parties said that they will continue with their protests and their marches to court on Wednesday, because this was not only about Pravin Gordhan, this was also their support for him is also in support of the Constitution, a support for democracy, and also for the rule of law in South Africa. So these marches are expected to go ahead on Wednesday.
Aisha Ishmael there for us. Now, France's defence ministers announced that a page has been turned for Central African Republic. This on Monday, as he officially ended his country's peacekeeping mission in the African nation. But even as France announced the end of the military deployment, it began 3 years ago, more fatal clashes were reported in the Central African capital. Nicolas Chemer has the story.
Sangaris, France's 7th military mission in the Central African Republic since its independence in 1960, officially ended on Monday. The French defence minister said the army had finished the job it had come to do.
This mission had 3 objectives. First, to stop mass killings. Then, to enable the establishment of democratic process. And finally, to complete a handover from the Sangaris military force to the United Nations. We have accomplished these 3 goals.
Some French troops will remain in the country. At the height of the crisis, there were more than 2,000 soldiers. By the end of the year, they will be less than 300. Some of them will integrate the UN mission, MINUSCA. France launched the mission in December 2013. Back then, there were clashes between the former Seleka rebels and the anti-Balaka militiamen. Thousands of people were killed. Today, there is still sporadic violence across the country. In the PK5 district in Bangui, some regret France's decision.
We are very worried. They were here for 3 years, they helped, they made us feel safe. This decision is shocking. We want Sangaris to stay.
The UN troops work, but not as much as the French ones. The French come by every day. They laugh with us. But the UN troops often stay in their headquarters, whereas the French carry out patrols every day.
The presence of French and UN troops enabled the organization of a presidential election earlier this year. It was won by Faustin Archange Touadéra. French and UN soldiers have also been accused of sexual abuse in the country. French judges are investigating the allegations.
Faced with accusations that it's detaining thousands of people under a state of emergency, Ethiopia's claimed that around 2,000 have been arrested, but then released since the order was brought in on October 9th. They were suspected of involvement in the sometimes violent anti-government protests that first began last November. The defence minister hasn't said how many nationals are still being held, though. Critics have accused the government of using the state of emergency to crack down on opposition. More protests were held in the northern Moroccan city of Al Hoceima on Monday, in the wake of the death of a fishmonger last Friday. Thousands attended the funeral of Muhsin Fikri on Sunday. He reportedly was in despair when he threw himself into a rubbish truck, the same one authorities had used to destroy stock of his that they'd seized. The exact circumstances of his killing are unclear, and the Interior Ministry has called for an investigation. The incident has sparked outrage and frustration over police heavy-handedness.
This isn't the first time that this has happened. Other young people saw their future as uncertain, and for them their only option was to kill themselves. Is this the rule of law that we have been waiting for the last 60 years? We feel humiliated that we are living in a country without the rule of law, and our children fall victim to this despotism. And every time there is a will to rebuild our society around basic human rights, we're told it's not possible. And I think this is just people saying that they have had enough of being humiliated in this way.
Well, Africa, like the rest of the world, is watching the twists and turns of the US presidential race as it grows ever closer. Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, whoever wins will likely make all the difference in the continent's relations with Washington. Our Philip Crowther has taken a closer look at what, if any, Africa policy the rivals have.
We are literally just a few meters away from the US State Department. The Africa for Hillary coalition wants to amass support among the African diaspora in the US.
So she's been involved in Africa, but we do support her, or at least some of us support her. And we think that she's the best candidate for the job.
Hillary Clinton has establishment support in Washington. That includes her advisors on Africa, former ambassadors, and administration officials.
We can't even compare both candidates. Donald Trump has no record on Africa. Trump's record on Africa is him saying that all the African leaders are all corrupt. They have children, they have multiple wives and things like that. Nothing of substance.
This is a confident group already preparing for a Clinton White House. But what if Trump gets in? Khadija Robinson is one of very few to have looked into that possibility.
How Donald Trump may address trade issues with Africa. Donald Trump has indicated that his presidency would be much more insular and that he would focus more on the U.S. Donald Trump as president would probably significantly reduce aid, outward aid, and possibly even military presence.
Absent any concrete Africa policy from either candidate, the campaign advisors have to fill in the blanks. Here, Joseph Schmitz is representing Trump on Al Hurra, which broadcasts in North Africa.
The African leaders who have met Hillary Clinton know what a disaster she is. At least with Donald Trump, they know he's been successful in international business, and in making America great again, he will make the partners for the African friends better partnerships. Donald Trump is all about win-win relationships.
The New York billionaire or the former Secretary of State, the differences are stark, most likely also on Africa.
Well, we'll have to see. That is, though, what we're going to have to leave it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.